I recognize the member from Guelph.
Speaker. Always an honor to rise in this House today to debate the speech from the throne. And before I begin that, Speaker, I want to congratulate you on being appointed a Deputy Speaker. And I also want to put it on the record, my congratulations to the MPP from Flamborough-Glanbrook for making history as the first woman Speaker in Ontario history. I also want to take some time to thank the people of Guelph for electing me to be their MPP for the third time now. My commitment to you, thank you. My commitment to you is to continue to work hard, to put service above self, and to always do what I tell my staff. The people of our riding are our boss, and we work hard for them. I also want to take a moment since yesterday, and actually before I do that, I want to just congratulate all the new members who are elected to the legislature this time, and all the returning members who are back for another parliament. I also want to take a moment, since yesterday was the federal election, to congratulate Prime Minister Mark Carney, Dominique O'Rourke, who was elected MP in my riding in Guelph, and in the neighbouring riding of Wellington-Halton Hills North, which now comprises a portion of the southern part of Guelph, to congratulate Michael Chong. I want to thank, there you go, for being re-elected as MP. I want to take also a moment to just thank everyone who put their name on a ballot in both the provincial and the federal elections, and especially give a shout out to Dr. Anne-Marie Zadlik, who ran for the Ontario Greens in my riding in Guelph. One thing I think we can all agree on, regardless of party stripe, is that Trump's ridiculous and chaotic tariffs are hurting workers in Ontario and Canada and are hurting workers in the United States. And I feel that in my riding in Guelph, where the Conference Board of Canada says that Guelph is the most trade-exposed city in the province of Ontario, and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce has identified Guelph as the fourth most trade-exposed city in Canada. So when it comes to automotive, appliances, agricultural manufacturing and exporting, we feel the tariffs. So the one thing I'll say to my constituents, and I'll say to the members in this House, I will work across party lines to support legislation that provides financial support to workers and businesses who are directly and negatively impacted by these ridiculous Trump tariffs. I will also work to diversify our trading partners and to reduce interprovincial trade barriers. At the same time, Speaker, I want to be clear to my constituents, because they have told me this loud and clear, that protecting Ontario not only includes protecting industry and business, but it also means protecting the people and places we love in this province. Many of you know I grew up on a farm in a small town in the middle of nowhere, raising grain and cattle. And my mom, for a long time, was a small town rural school teacher. And both of them taught me, whether it was in the two businesses I've started or the nonprofits I've helped start or in my life as an MPP, that you have to care for the land that feeds us and the people who are part of our community. And so people wonder why I'm such an avid supporter and I work hard to protect prime farmland in this province. It's because I know what it's like to work that land and grow food for people. If people want to know why it's so important to me to protect the environment and species, it's because I grew up hunting and fishing, camping, hiking, canoeing, spending time in nature. And I want to protect the nature that protects us, especially at a time when the climate crisis is bearing down on us. Last summer, the floods in the GTA cost $1.3 billion an hour. The ice storm that just hit last month made communities, including the one my daughter goes to the University of Trent, she was in Peterborough for over a week without access to electricity. And so when we talk about environmental standards, when we talk about environmental protection and environmental assessments, part of it is protecting our loved ones, our communities, our infrastructure, our businesses from the increasing severity and frequency of the climate crisis. And it also means investing and attracting investment in the $2.1 trillion green energy transition to Ontario to help tariff-proof this province by making us a global leader in the new climate economy. But I'm also going to talk about the crisis of caring, in addition to the climate crisis, Speaker. The crisis in our healthcare system, the crisis in the fact that $1,500 per student has been cut from our education system, the crisis of our housing, where so many people can't afford a home, the crisis in the fact that people on ODSP are living in legislative poverty, or that adults with developmental disabilities don't have the supports and services we need. So my pledge to my constituents in this next provincial parliament is I'm going to fight to address the climate crisis and the caring crisis, Speaker.
Question. I recognize the member from Port Wellington.
Thank you, Speaker. To my colleague, for the new members, his nickname is Mr. Green. To my colleague in the House today, my question, I won't ask him if he's thinking of running for the federal Green leadership. I know I would happily support him in that endeavor, but my question on the throne speech and his remarks today were about how can we continue to make those important investments in our agriculture sector around processing? What are some ways you could see that, especially in the Guelph and Wellington area?
Response. I recognize the member from Guelph.
Thank you. I appreciate my colleague from Perth Wellington. It was nice to have you in Guelph last week to open an expansion of our emergency department. I actually want to thank Minister of Health for being there as well. So I think we need a fund to invest in local processing and local supply chain development. We know how vital processing is, especially for people in our fruit and vegetable sector and in our protein sectors, to expand capacity in Guelph and in other places. I think now is a perfect opportunity to have a buy local strategy with supply chain investments, because we know that in addition to saving and protecting farmland, we need to ensure that the farmers who farm that land can do it profitably, and having strong local supply chains are a part of that.
Question. I recognize the member from Muskiecook, James Bay.
And thank you. I always enjoy hearing you speak, the member from Guelph. And in this throne speech, we heard how this government, when expedite access to the critical minerals, will be in the ring of fire. But we also know that we're debating bills now that when we talk about assessment and endangered species, and that James Bay, or the ring of fire and close to James Bay coast, how vulnerable the peatlands are, how vulnerable the territories are there, and the lack of consultation with First Nation. I really want to hear on you on these three issues, if you can, one or the one you pick. But no, because you're talking environment, how much you're concerned about the expedited process we want to move, sometimes too fast, that could hurt the climate change and First Nations.
I recognize the member from Guelph.
The member's question. Let's be clear. Protecting the land and the environment that protects us is not red tape. Indigenous sovereignty, First Nations consultation and consent is not red tape. Worker health and safety in mines and in other developments are not red tape. Yeah, we need economic development, and we know that critical mineral mining is going to be critically important for a mining to EV manufacturing supply chain. We know it will be important to investing in made in Ontario low-cost renewable energy. But we can't cut corners. We can't cut corners in the peatlands. We can't cut corners in the ring of fire. We have to take the time to do this right, and we can actually expedite approvals if we have Indigenous First Nations consultation and consent. If the public has the confidence that the social license of environmental protections, especially for sensitive ecosystems like the boreal forest and the peatlands, are in place. So let's do our homework, get that in place so we can move forward with development in a proper way.
Question? I recognize the member from Ajax.
Thank you, Speaker. I recognize during the member of Guelph's remarks around some of the recreational activities, and in particular being out on the water, and just curious from the member of Guelph what he thinks that the province should be doing, and maybe what should have been in the throne speech as it pertains to protecting our waterways and headwaters. Thank you.
Response, I recognize the member from Guelph.
Thank you, Speaker. I was so eager to respond to that. I got up quickly, I just want to say thank you for the question. And, one of the things that I'm deeply concerned about that we heard in the speech from the throne and we've seen in subsequent legislation is a further eroding of the ability of conservation authorities to protect our waterways, a lack of understanding of the role that wetlands play in cleaning our drinking water and protecting us from flooding events. We need stronger protections for water.